Hello and welcome back to Identity Architects, the InfoSum podcast that spotlights the pioneers in the media industry who are changing the way the data is used to power richer customer experiences. I'm your host Ben Cicchetti, and for this episode, our VP of Client Services, Ben Chivers, sat down with Matt Hill, Director of Research and Planning at Thinkbox, to discuss the connected TV ecosystem, first-party data, the future of measurement, and much, much more. Before we jump into that conversation, just a reminder to hit that subscribe button so you know when the latest episodes of Identity Architects land. But without any further delay, here's Ben's chat with Matt.
Matt, welcome. Thank you for joining us on the podcast today. For anyone who doesn't know you, can you give a short introduction to yourself and to Thinkbox?
Yeah, no problem at all, and thanks for inviting me along. My name is Matt Hill. I'm the Research and Planning Director here at Thinkbox. So Thinkbox is the trade marketing body for TV. We're funded by ITV, Channel 4 Sky, by UK TV, by a number of associate members around the world, and our mission, our ambition really is to help agencies, to help advertisers to get the best out of TV. And so my job really is about conducting lots of research into the role TV plays on the media plan, how it drives effectiveness for businesses, understanding the changing nature of the viewing landscape and where TV fits in to that today. And then also we do a lot of work in terms of just getting this insight out into the hands of agencies, into advertisers, and we run a training course called the TV Masters, which 5,000 people in the industry have now completed. So just a little plug for that in the podcast.
Awesome. Well, we'll definitely put the link in the bio. So you're perfectly placed really to talk about measurement, and that's what we're here to talk about on Identity Architects this session. Before we get into all the detailed questions, I've got a few quick fire questions just for people to get to know you and get to know the man behind Thinkbox a little bit better. So if we'll jump straight into these quick fire questions now. So first of all, what's your earliest memory of TV and advertising?
Yeah, so I'm 46, so this is many people similar age will be remembering the same stuff to me, but it would have been for TV, the BBC kids programs, and Mr. Ben, the likes of Willow the Wisp, Pigeon Street, definitely the shows that I remember sort of being my earliest memory of TV watching. But the stuff that really captured my imagination was when I just discovered Knight Rider one day, completely by accident, and it was just the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And I think I fell in love with TV through shows like that. In terms of advertising, I think the earliest memory stuff would be the serials. They just did such a good job of marketing and with jingles and with the ad campaigns. So Tony the Tiger and Cocoa Pops, the Sugar Monster, all that kind of ads. And I think those are a lot of people my age can still, we can recount the jingles to this day. So they were pretty effective.
But not allowed to be played in children's TV anymore.
No, those days are gone. For a time, they were highly effective.
And what? So jumping forward a little bit from the Tony the Tiger days, but what was your first job in TV or advertising?
Yeah, well, I lucked my way really into the TV industry. I came out of university with a degree in biology, so completely not related in any way to TV, to media, to business. I just got a job which was a temp job where I was working for a small company that conducted research for independent production companies, and they used to use barb data, and they used to code a load of additional data onto it. So my first job was actually watching TV programs and coding the end credits of shows into a database, and I spent a good 6 months doing that. So, but it was a really, really unique and lucky introduction into the world of TV because it was a small company. And I think small companies are a great place to start because you get this kind of can do kind of anything you want to do, any ideas you've got, just go ahead and make it happen. But also I worked with a load of really, really smart people. There were consultants there who were, working with the likes of the BBC and Ofcom and independent production companies, and I guess I learned my trade from them, and I stole their ideas and took them with me.
Awesome. And what would you say to yourself at knowing what you know now? What would you say to yourself just starting out your career in that first job?
Yeah, well, I think to a certain degree, when I got my first job in London, I was working in a sort of research team within a company called Flex Tech TV, which used to own like sort of Living TV, Bravo, Trouble, Challenge, and I was in a research team that kind of was very much a service department. And it was about servicing the programming teams who were the sort of the heroes and the champions. I'd probably say to myself that don't underestimate the value of research. Don't underestimate the importance of how data can change the direction a business goes in, and how critical it is. And just be more confident in the role that you can play in driving the business forward, and that you're not a service function. You are something that can actually be a real driver of success, and you belong at the heart of the business. Because I think it's probably easy in some of these roles to think, oh, we're not as important as those team over there, because they're doing this exciting stuff. And I think it's I'd probably just have a word myself and say, just believe in yourself, go and make a difference.
I think believing in yourself is solid advice for anyone starting a career, really.
Yeah, we struggle with it, don't we? I think most people have imposter syndrome, don't they? And I think the belief is the most powerful thing.
And jumping forward again to your role at Thinkbox, like what do you love about your role at the moment?
There's very little not to love working at Thinkbox. It's a fantastic company. It's an incredible team of people. Again, it's a small company, and I've found I've worked in some sort of medium-sized companies, and coming back to working for a small company, I absolutely love the dynamics of it. Are really, really good. And so the things I really love about this job is it's TV, and I've got the whole of TV as my playground. So I worked for Channel 5 for a number of years, and moved from Channel 5 to Thinkbox, and moved into a world where you're kind of sort of representing one channel to representing every single channel and everything that it offers, from World Cup football to incredible drama to brilliant reality shows to news, current affairs. It's just it gives you this incredible playing field to utilise. And then I think the other thing that is really lucky about what I do is that it always changes. We're never doing the same thing twice. We're trying to evolve as we go along. The industry's evolving. All our projects evolve as we move forward. So every day is different. So it's a brilliant team. It's a really exciting and interesting industry. TV is a magical thing, industry to work within. It's a lovely place to work.
Awesome, thank you. And okay, so I've asked this question a couple of times in interviews recently, and also it's a standard one that we ask in the Identity Architects podcast. But we're within advertising, we're becoming obsessed with the concept of identity. So if we were to have a 10-year-old here, how would you describe the concept of identity to them?
Do you know this? I read this one before, and I really struggled with it. It's really hard. I've got two boys. One's 13, one's 11, and both of them, do crop up with these sort of questions, and you've got to try and answer them. So, if my youngest asked me what identity is, what would I say? I'd probably say it is your unique self. It is what makes you an individual, and it's often thought of in terms of your unique characteristics. So it could be your full name, it could be your address, but it's what makes you unique in the world. Would be my best way of trying to answer that question, but I really struggled with it.
Good answer. I mean, I've heard, most recently I heard it described as a fingerprint, which would again goes into your unique identifier side of things.
Yeah, that's a nice way of doing it. So your fingerprint could be your part of your identity.
Sticking with the definition themes, how would you describe CTV, and would you say this is an agency buzzword at the moment?
I probably would. I think it's that we struggle with this as an industry in that there's new terminology that gets used, and we don't have, there isn't one. It's not like the legal industry where there's a process for definitions and terms, and so in media we've all got definitions and terms, and they all mean completely different things. Look, CTV, it means connected television. So it's a television that's connected to the internet, and therefore it's has the ability to deliver live streamed content, video on demand content, and provides users with choice and control over what they watch. But I think it can be used as a alternative way of describing AVOD, or sort of advertiser funded VOD, or fast channels, or it gets into this sort of melting pot of terms. So it's I think it's just it really, connected TV is a delivery mechanic for internet delivered content.
Perfect. Cool. Thank you. And what keeps you awake at night then?
Probably the same thing that keeps most people awake at night. I think we all have that struggle, don't we? Where your brain decides at three o'clock in the morning is the best time to solve a problem you've got with a project, or how you're going to tackle a difficult conversation. There's nothing in particular that I would say continuously worries me. I'd say I'm probably the same as most people in that my brain's always sort of ticking over and thinking about things, and unfortunately 3 o'clock in the morning seems to be its favourite point to really get into the detail. But it's also a really useless point, because everything's so much worse, isn't it? 3 o'clock in the morning, and you sort of, quite often you'd be worried about something, and you wake up the next day, and you go, why the hell was I worrying about that? I even do this thing, and I don't know if you do it, Ben, but I have these like arguments with people that are never going to happen, but it's like I end up like having this sort of theoretical argument, and I'll be going through the process, and I'll sort of wake up next going, what on earth was that about? And it's just mad, isn't it, how your brain works?
My wife has woken up in a bad mood with me because she had an argument with me in her dream.
Yeah, I get that.
No idea what she's.
No, you've done something wrong in a dream, and you're still, you're being punished for it throughout the day. It's not fair.
And what inspires you?
I'm inspired by a lot of things. I'm inspired. I love working. I love working in teams. We had an away day recently, and it always amazes me how brilliant everyone is and how many brilliant ideas people can come up with. And so that inspires me. I love chatting to advertisers, and understanding, speaking to them about their problems and their challenges, because it's just that first-hand conversation is vital. But I suppose just TV inspires me. Watching things on TV can be really, really, put your goosebumps up, can't they? And I was watching the cricket the other day, and I caught the end of the cricket on Monday, and Stuart Broad's, just going out in that way. How inspiring is that? And so it's stuff like that, I think, is what sort of picks you up and makes you realise what's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you say then sport on TV is like the pinnacle of TV itself then?
Yeah, I think it inspires you in different ways. So I remember that, like, when Channel 4 had One Born Every Minute, the number of people who applied to be midwives went through the roof. So
Yeah.
TV can inspire in a number of different ways. And I think I was watching, what was it? It was Liptonchenko on the drama on ITV, and about the sort of dogged police work that went into sort of solving that crime, and how hard they're depicted in terms of how hard they're working to crack this case. And you think, kind of, I don't think anyone thinks about this kind of as explicitly as I would, but you have sort of such admiration for the police force and their work, and you sort of go, as taxpayers, we pay for that. We're paying for that. It's funding this incredible, important work. And so, and I think TV can do that, can't it? It can bring to the surface things that you wouldn't necessarily think about, and it can make you value things that you wouldn't necessarily normally value. So I think TV is a source of inspiration in many different ways.
Interesting. Yeah, I've never thought of it like that either. Cool. Final question in the quickfire round then. So, if you had a song for the soundtrack of your life, what would it be?
So this is the question where I was going. I really don't know. But I decided it would have to be a song by Daft Punk called "TV Rules the Nation" because because it's the only thing when I googled that seemed like it could vaguely fit against my life and my work life and what I do. It's not a great song. I wouldn't go and spend too much time listening. Literally, it is that repeating itself over and over again, TV Rules the Nation to a funky beat. But maybe go and check it out.
Is that the song that comes on when you walk into Thinkbox every day?
Exactly. Yeah. We got it playing on loop throughout the day in the offices.
Cool. Okay, so now we get on to the more topic related questions around measurement and TV in a bit more detail. So first party data has started to become an integral part of marketing strategies and the way that broadcasters use personal data as well. What would you recommend to brands, media owners, and to get prepared to use data in this way?
I'm not necessarily a person who's particularly an expert in big data, but I think the experience I have had through projects that I've worked on, where we have got into using proper big census level return path data and registration data, etc. And so for any businesses that are starting out the journey, I can't stress enough the importance of having clean data, the this kind of data, because it is so huge. It does get messy. It is inconsistent. It is incomplete. People, if it's something that people have filled in themselves, you cannot, rely that they filled it in the way that they should have done. And so, probably job number one is to invest time, resource in cleaning that data set, getting it into a good place. Otherwise, if you don't do that, you'll get to a point where you want to use it for something, and it's going to take you a year to get it ready before you're actually able to use it. So I think trying to start and making sure you've got as clean as possible set of data with this kind of data is critical. And then I think the other side of it really is the legal side, and have your legal sorted out, have your T's and C's sorted out, and have a good understanding of what you'd like to use that data for, and that you've got the right permissions to use that data in that way. So if you're starting out the journey, those would be the two things really that I'd focus on.
Got it. And just diving into what you're saying about cleaning data in a little bit more detail then. So how would you what are the things to sort of the brands need to be aware of to say, okay, my data isn't clean enough, or what do I need to do to make sure it's up to the certain standard? Do you have any kind of recommendations there?
Well, again, I'm probably not the best person to ask on this, but I think it's you're going to have sets of data that are complete and are quite good and are quite clean, and then you're going to have sets of data where you've got missing fields and missing elements. And really, it's about trying to, as much as possible, fill in the gaps where there are gaps, and you might it might be possible, it might not be possible. I think where it's not possible, you probably want to separate that out and throw it away so that it's not causing, it gives you a realistic idea of the actual, the volume of quality data that you are sitting on. Because without that, you may be just fooling yourself in terms of thinking you've got a massive data set when you haven't really.
Makes sense. Okay, so, and shifting gears a little bit then, so what are the challenges do you see in the industry in terms of legislation and the shift towards more privacy focused advertising?
I think there's the big things that are going on in terms of data legislation is obviously been the impact of GDPR, but probably what's coming is going to be the impact of the sort of cookieless world, and the change in the way that the likes of Apple and Google are going to be treating data and allowing allowing you to track users across and within their environments. So I think both of these things lean towards having your own first party data to use, and I think the media owners that are sitting on the biggest volumes of first party data are in a good position. And now I partly would say that because the broadcasters are sitting on a lot of high quality first party data. But what that does mean is, again, as long as a media owner has got their legal setup correctly, they understand what permissions they have got and what they can do with that data, and they're keeping a clean set of data, they're going to be in a really, really good place to enable advertisers to continue, or probably less about continuing, more about to get the most out of all the promises that the online world offers in terms of being able to target individual users using that data and increase the efficiency and the overall effectiveness of their advertising campaigns. So I think first party data is more and more critical in today's world, isn't it?
Do you think broadcasters know when the death of cookies finally happens, then that the value of the first party data they're sitting on is going to go through the roof?
Yeah, I think they know that it's a strength of theirs, and but for years they've been investing in the technology to take advantage of this. Everything that Sky's been doing with AdSmart, everything that ITV's been doing with in terms of building Planet V. They're having conversations, as we've seen from the news recently, that Sky's joined Planet V, and that's facilitating a way in which advertising agencies can more easily buy scalable solutions across more than one broadcaster. Channel 4 been doing a huge amount of work with their data in terms of offering data matching solutions, of which you guys will be all across, because you're the machine, the tech platform that helps provide that facilitates that. So yeah, absolutely, they're aware of, the broadcasters are very much aware of the strength of first party data, and they've been invested in building the technology that's going to allow them to make use of it. And I think we're still quite at the beginning of a lot of this stuff. I think it's still quite novel. It's still it still requires quite a lot of effort and work. But I think we're getting through a lot of those barriers. And for the brands that are starting to experiment with this opportunity, are going to be the ones that are ahead of the game, because they're going to have a lot of the setup in place. They're going to realise how to use it. They're going to realise how they can take advantage of it. They're going to see what works, what doesn't work. And so I would encourage brands to engage with the broadcaster and say, look, I've got this data, you've got this data. What can we have some conversations and see what we could potentially do? Because brands are very much aware that some of their usual tactics and the usual approaches that they've been utilising to try and sort of target it are not necessarily going to be there in a couple of years.
Interesting. So you recently spoke at our Info Summit in London, which was the focus of that was on measurement. What do you see as some of the challenges on measurement, and what are the limitations there?
So the challenges around measurement really are stem from the fragmentation that we've seen in the media landscape. So it was very not very easy, but it was easier 20 years ago, when there were only a smaller number of channels, and it was all delivered linear. Everybody, all viewers were seeing the same content and the same ads, and so it was relatively easy for a panel-based system such as Barb to be able to measure audiences, measure reach and frequency, and provide the data that advertisers needed. And as media is fragmented, audiences have become smaller, and that makes panel-based measurement not fit for purpose on its own. And so we need to start incorporating the return path data, the census level measurement that we're getting through the content that's delivered online. But we need to combine that with panel data to understand the who, because the census level data is great. It gives you a high level of granularity. It's not very good at giving you information on who, because it's obviously it's machine data as opposed to people data. So we're moving into this place where basically the world has got more complicated, and the tools that we used to measure audiences have lost their power and their ability to do that accurately. And so we're now moving to this world where we have to start putting the two of these things together to find the best solutions. So those really are some of the fundamental challenges with measurement.
How do you see, and you might not have the answer to this because this might be the $1 million question, but how do you see those two worlds combining, where you've got panel, which is a small sample size, with the digital world, which is almost like complete worldview? How do you see them fitting together, and is there a solution out there that does that?
Yeah, well, Barb have already made quite good inroads into finding these kind of solutions. So they collect the data from the broadcasters in terms of the amount of views that are being generated by their return path data to their individual content strands. So that gives them the volume of viewing that's going on to individual titles, and then they can use their panel data to start providing an idea of who those audiences are, what their profile is, what age they are, where they live. There are, we're already using this kind of technologies together in order to get the best picture of what's going on in the world of TV. I think it's now just sort of moving beyond that. There's lots of conversations going on around what we could do to broaden Barb's remit. Netflix are now a part of Barb. Disney Plus is. I think they're having conversations with the likes of Amazon. So we're broadening out the world, and again, that will hopefully in time we'll be able to do something similar where they're sharing sort of return path data and mixing it with the Barb panel data to provide the most accurate view. So I think it's going to be about mixing these two worlds together to give us the best solutions in terms of measurement.
And do you see eventually then that Barb would bring on more and more content providers, the likes of like maybe short form stuff like YouTube, and more the sort of lower end of the funnel stuff like you mentioned around fragmentation? But is the solution then that Barb just keep bringing on more and more of those content owners?
Yeah, I think they already measure YouTube across their panel. So they have router meters which basically measure the internet traffic within their across their sort of 6,000 homes, and so they can tell when somebody is watching YouTube within the home. They don't know about out of home viewing. So they can provide pretty good estimates from that way. What they can't necessarily do is get the detail of what's being watched. And I think Barb are having conversations with YouTube about what they should measure and what they shouldn't measure. And there's lots of conversations around what's TV like and what isn't TV like. What qualifies as being giving you that assurance that it's TV like content and it's brand safe and it's that the advertising is appearing content that's good enough quality for advertisers to say, this is TV like content. So this is becoming less of a debate around technical measurement challenges and more a debate around philosophical, environmental, political views on what constitutes as a like for like environment.
Awesome. So we mentioned around fragmentation there, so diving into that in a little bit more detail. So what do you see the major differences between TV, radio, out of home, print, and the online media in terms of measurement?
So I think so from campaign measurement, and we can talk about sort of two different areas. One is about measuring how many people have been exposed to the campaign, and then the other element is measuring what the outcome of that campaign is. So what's been the impact of that campaign in terms of my marketing objectives, so the media that work indirectly or are only measured indirectly, like out of home, like TV, like radio, like the print. It's always been from an outcomes point of view, it's always been more of a challenge to be able to measure the impact that those channels are having on the campaign's performance. And so we tend to use techniques such as econometric modelling to understand the sales that are being generated as a result of using those channels. And to a certain degree, it's been possible to use basic attribution modelling, where you can look at the same point the TV spot's airing, how many people are going directly to the website within, a minute or so of that TV ad airing. What we do know is that kind of attribution modelling is only capturing a really, really small proportion of the overall impact of the TV campaign, because most of the time when people see TV ads, they're watching a program and they're not going to go and disappear off to a website, and it can have a delayed response working more over time. Obviously, with online channels, in particular likes of search, the likes of the social media, they've used attribution modeling because there is this return path data set. So they can say, here's somebody who saw your ad, and we now know that they did go on and click through or went to the site, or they behaved in this way. And I think that type of data has been really really used by advertisers as a way of demonstrating the value of those channels to their sort of financial teams. And I think the financial teams quite like that, because they've got a bit of paper that says, I've signed this check and this is the amount of sales that I've generated. The problem with it is that a lot of the time it's not really taking into account all the other factors that would have driven that sale, and all the credit ends up going to the search advertising, whereas in fact the TV was doing a really important job of driving the brand trust and credibility, and they'd heard some radio ads or seen print ads that had also influenced them to click on that ad. So if anything, that's been oversold in terms of its ability to really tell you the how effective that particular channel has been. It's like overstated the importance of social and the importance of search. So I think we're as an industry, actually, and again, this is partly down to the changes that the likes of Apple and Google are making in terms of your ability to track that kind of data. Everyone's moving towards a more sensible approach to understanding outcome based results by using better data. So econometrics, I think, is in a really interesting place. But I think there's more that can be done, and the broadcasters are looking into this, in how they can really work with advertisers to help them understand the outcomes of their campaigns. And the best way to do this, and I think that pretty much everyone's in agreement with it, is by having A/B tests, proper having a proper control and a test group, whereby you can get a certain group can be exposed to a campaign, an equivalent like for like group who are just as likely to buy the product, or a similar demography to the exposed group are sectioned out and then not exposed, and then you can start to get a read on how effective that campaign was. And I know that sort of marries up to some of the stuff that you guys are doing at InfoSum.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you think that would multi-touch attribution still need to be taken into consideration then? Because even with that test and control group you're describing there, you're still going to have outside influences that could be like the weather, or it could be like if you saw an ad on another platform. How do you kind of take those out of the equation when you're doing that clear A/B testing?
Well, I think so. ITV are doing quite a lot of work with their potential in terms of the regions that they've got, and so what they're doing is to be able to create two groups which are as like for like as possible, and through that you can get the best possible read in terms of the effect of the exposed versus the exposed on a fair basis. Now, I think in terms of things outside of your control, like I don't know, slightly different weather patterns, or different ad exposure, there probably are some things that you'd ideally want to be able to factor for within the overall model. But I think you're probably getting to a cleaner place with a proper A/B test than you would normally be able to get just with econometric modelling.
Got it. So whatever, even if you start just with A/B testing right now, it's better than what you're doing at the moment.
I expect so. Yeah, I think it's very hard to get a perfect measurement capability, but I think we're getting to a place where we're getting a much better measurement capability than we have had in the past.
And what are you doing at Thinkbox then to help brands, broadcasters on that journey, and the recommendations you're making there to help them get to that point where they can do proper measurement?
Yeah, I think we do a lot of work with the likes of the IPA. They've got a program called Effectiveness Week, and we sponsor this program, and we help sort of guide the overall event structure and what they're going to be sort of discussing. And they've got some really great programs that you can take part in, which advertisers can lean on to understand how they should embrace a more sophisticated effectiveness culture within their business. And I think understanding the effectiveness of advertising is not a sort of single step process. It's not just about okay, well, let's work with this econometrician in order to tell us how our advertisers working. It's about having a mentality across the business, which is all the way through from designing your campaigns and your media plan and your advertising strategy with effectiveness being the end goal, and with measurement frameworks set up in place from the start through to the finish, and that everybody in the organisation is buying into this approach. Because quite often, what we see is that you still end up with siloed businesses where you might, as a marketer, might turn up with a bit of evidence that suggests, here's the read I've got in terms of what's been driving success, but it's not bought into by the rest of the business. So I think it's that kind of work is really important in helping businesses get the right structure in place in order to be able to have a proper effectiveness framework, and be willing to go down the road and do some tests, test and learns, to find out what works and what doesn't work.
So you're saying there that if effectiveness is the goal, measurement is the journey you're going to go on, and you're never going to say, yes, I've done measurement, tick. It's going to be an iterative process. You're going to go through it again and again to refine what your effectiveness of advertising.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's more of it's a culture. It's a part of the overall strategy, as opposed to a sort of tactic that you bolt on to the end of a campaign.
And in terms of like going on that journey, then helping clients go down that route, what technologies do you see in the market at the moment that are really exciting, that are helping change the way clients utilize measurement?
Well, and I promise I'm not being paid to say this because I'm on the InfoSum podcast, but yeah, I think the idea of or the potential from data bunkers, I think, is really interesting, because it allows advertisers to be able to share data in a way that means they're not having to give their own data away. And I think, again, you'd be able to talk more about this, but one of the key advantages is that once you're in and you've got your legal set up, then you've got a bit more freedom to be able to play, to test and learn, to experiment in a way that would be just too time consuming if you were doing it. If you were trying to set it up from scratch every single time. So I think the fact that you've got a number of businesses that are already sharing data. So let's talk about some of the people on your platform, the likes of Nectar or Advantage Card data, the broadcasters data. You've got data from Samsung in terms of what they're seeing, people are watching. You could start to get to a place where you could do some really interesting test and learn experiments, saying, right, who's been exposed, who hasn't been exposed, how's this campaign worked, or let's just expose this group of potential customers based on these characteristics and see how it works. So I think that's a really interesting opportunity for brands to engage with and start to build an understanding on a small scale at relatively low risk of what might potentially work, so that they can then scale it up and do so with more confidence across the business, that they know what they're doing and they know they're going to see a return.
Thank you for the lovely plug.
You're welcome.
And what do you see as still missing then? If you've got the InfoSum platform allowing you to combine those data sets and bring in data from the likes of dunnhumby, Nectar, Boots with the broadcast data and brand data, if you had a magic wand, what would you say is like, okay, to help take clients on this measurement journey that we're on, to help them with that test and learn strategy, what would be a great new tool to have in place?
Well, no, I think it's the magic wand would be about just making it really easy,
Yeah.
taking away all the complexity and making it so that everything was available in one place. So you could buy the whole of TV, and you could buy it using the same data sets. So it was if let's say everything was in one place, it was completely unified, and you could attach. Let's say, I don't know, you used Experian data, or there was a certain type of data you wanted to use, and that was available across all parties. I think, and there was a simple interface where all the legals were done, where you could just go and buy and test and play at small scale in a simple way. Everyone would be doing it all the time, right? I think it's the problem is that setting it up in the first place can be quite time consuming. It can be you've got a lot of internal work to do with your own sort of legal teams. There is hoops that you have to sort of jump through and to check. So I think it's just pain that we're going to have to go through over the next 5 to 10 years. But if we go through that, we've got to remember we're traveling to a place where, as an industry, the volume of TV that's going to be IP delivered is going to massively ramp up. And so in, let's say, 5-10 years, this is going to be even more important. And you probably want to be in a place as a business where you've got a good idea of how to use it, and you've got a lot of the initial groundwork done, so that you can then really properly take advantage of it, and you're not suddenly trying to play catch up.
You mentioned around Advantage Card data and Nectar and dunnhumby data. It seems like CTV and retail media are converging right now and have been for the last 6 to 9 months. But why do you see there being such high synergy between those two industries, and what do you expect to see over the next 12 to 18 months?
So I've got a slightly different definition of retail media. So I think you talk about retail media. I think of retail media as being media within a store. So like you've got a TV in a store, or you've got out of home placements, or even retail media being Amazon sponsored top links. I think so. When you talk about retail media, do you mean sort of the data that they're sitting on in terms of what people are buying? And being able to target, I don't know, people who don't currently buy your product or are light buyers, etc. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I guess defining retail media would be a good starting point here. So I kind of see retail media as being a new revenue stream for retailers, whether that's advertising within the shops themselves, like you've just been talking about, or monetizing their data to give deeper insights for brands out there. So using that data to show attribution for measurement, using it for targeting and things like that. So it's the new revenue streams that retailers have exposed their fingertips right now. And with the InfoSum platform, we're allowing like brands to use that data to target in a privacy safe way.
Yeah, so I think with the actual sort of media side of things, there's probably really good opportunities to run synergistic campaigns across TV and within store, so that you got in the same way that you want to have the same creative strategy running across out of home and TV, you'd want to have the same creative strategy within store as well. And we often see that with partnerships like the McVitie's Britain's Got Talent sponsorship they had in store. promotions relating to Britain's Got Talent. So I think that's a fairly sort of 101 from a strategy
Yeah.
point of view. In terms of the data side of things, it really, FMCG, as we know, is one of the is one of the most challenging sectors in terms of return on investment. So it's a long burn. You don't get your money back in the short term for FMCG marketing as a general rule, but you do get your money back because consumer behaviour is pretty routinal. So once somebody's started buying your product, they generally carry on buying it for a number of years, and that's where you see the return, and that's why um, for FMCG brands, they very much live by the sort of Byron Sharp rule book of mental availability and reach being the most important aspect. But what I think is really interesting with this kind of data is the ability to be a little bit more clever with some of your tactical campaigns, and to do some really rich, segmentation work, customer targeting, trying to find those lighter buyers or non-buyers, and be much more tactical and possibly more efficient with uh, your media use. And that retailer census level first party data matched with the broadcaster's first party data gives you a really neat ability to do that. And I think you guys are probably sitting on some nice case studies of seeing that actually in practice.
I suppose that plays really nicely into what we were discussing earlier around the death of cookies, first party data being key. If you're a brand that doesn't have that first party data, retailers are the next best place to go to.
Absolutely, yeah. So the retailers are sitting on the data that you need in order to, because you're not the person that is sitting on that first party data. Exactly.
And
Yeah.
and then in turn that helps you with the test and learn strategy that we are talking about. So then you can see the effects of your marketing spend on any of the digital channels. You can then actually see the effects of it with the retailers where they're at the point of sale.
Exactly. Yeah. So you're getting all the data really within one place that you need to build this sort of effectiveness framework that we were talking about before.
Perfect. And so, getting the magic ball out now, what would you see as the prediction for the future in terms of data collaboration, privacy, measurement? Where do you see the industry in the next 5? I'm not even going to say 10 years because it changes so much. Where would you see things going in the next 5 years, and what would be the most exciting developments?
Well, I think look, the thing is with predictions is that the only thing you can guarantee is that you're going to be wrong. I would say next, 5 years time, TV is going to be a very different place. It's going to be, we've seen the likes of Sky Glass, which is just delivering, completely IP delivered TV. So I think, we could well find ourselves in a place where the vast majority of TV advertising is being delivered via the internet, which gives a huge amount of scale for much more sort of tactical, targeted activity. And so this is obviously just going to become more and more important. That's not for me saying that we're going to lose, the importance of driving mass reach and scale and getting everyone to see your ads with one consistent communication. I think that will live for a long time. But what I do see is that in 5 years' time, the TV is going to be in a really interesting place in bringing together the best of both worlds. So by the best of both worlds, I mean it's the ability of TV to tell an engaging story, across 30, 60 seconds of airtime in an environment that's trusted and respected in people's favourite content, alongside all the targeting capability that the online world brings. And I think online's been promising for years and years these efficiencies and this enhanced effectiveness to advertisers. And I'm not sure we've completely seen that realised. But I think in 5 years' time we could be seeing some really exciting stuff.
Okay, in terms of like getting you nailed down for a prediction, then we've mentioned around like the death of cookies is going to happen. If you're a betting man, when do you think that's going to happen? When is Google going to pull the plug and say, right, no more cookies?
That's the golden question, isn't it? Look, when were they supposed to do it originally? 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Um, uh, I think, look, in 5 years' time, it will, the cookie will have died. There you go. That would be my prediction.
Okay, there we go.
Whether it's going to take a whole 5 years or 2 years, I don't know.
It's down. We've got you now down.
Come back to me in 5 years' time.
Yeah. Okay, so anything else? Final questions now. So anything else you'd like to mention? Anything else you want to add?
Do you know what? I think we've covered some pretty good ground there. And I think that's a good 55 minutes. I think people are probably done by now.
It's good conversation. Really, really interesting. And I particularly like the conversations around the inspiration, like Knight Rider and Frosties.
Yeah.
Brought me back to a happier day.
It was good times, wasn't it?
So other than David Hasselhoff, would there be any other people you'd like to see in this podcast going forward?
So who would be great to hear on this podcast? Have you done Jay from Planet V yet? I think he's got a lot of good stuff to talk about.
Awesome, but I'll definitely speak to him, and we'll block out a whole afternoon to chatting through with him about Planet V.
Yeah, I think it'd be worth time. They're doing some exciting stuff. So yeah, chat to Jay.
Well, Matt, thank you so much for your time. It's been a great conversation with you. Pleasure as always to chat through things with you, all things measurement.
Loved it. Love chat and measurement anytime. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks very much.
Thanks again to Matt for joining us on Identity Architects. That was an awesome conversation, and personally, I can't believe it took 38 episodes of Identity Architects to get a David Hasselhoff reference into the podcast. All that leaves for me to do is to remind you to hit that subscribe button so you know when the next episode of Identity Architects lands. But until then, thanks for listening.